Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Misþyrming, Orgia, svipur, lofti.
Yeah, you have the wrong lyrics. It's these.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we are.
It's a wonderful reading, Vin. I really appreciate that.
So there you go. You may be wondering, dear listener, why in the world did you choose this band? Thank you for asking. So what we have is what we call the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in a Patreon, and then you'll be able to join an alliance. You pull your points together. That helps determine what song we do. This particular alliance is the most mysterious and has one of the most mysterious, shadowy figures in the history of our community. That would be Damon Sage.
Yeah.
Okay, so the True Cult is basically a black metal alliance. Sometimes they'll do extreme death.
Blackened death metal.
Or actually, it's black. I'm assuming this is a black metal band.
This one is, yeah, that black metal from Iceland.
From Iceland. Alright, so that's how you do it. And for timely, topical, political commentary, you can hit me up in Middle America with Vin and Sori. That being the case, let us listen.
The most recent video has our son in it, so...
Yes.
You might find some entertainment in the
He did a good job.
In the video there. Yeah. Okay. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Jumbo. I can already. Sarcasm there, not like this, bro. This guy's vocal style. It's like a Nurgle type vocal style. praise and grovel.
Well, I have to say the reigning god here doesn't sound like a very nice character. Like, part of it, like, okay, sometimes musically when they create such a scene that I actually feel like anxiety inside. I felt like part of it I was being chased and people were just getting hit with axes and machetes beside me and somebody was coming after me too.
Pretty much, so, yeah.
And then at the end, it was like, I felt like you had been caught, but they didn't kill you, and now you were being... You know, like those like dungeony areas where there's like fire and people are like making weapons and stuff like that, and like...
Blacksmith.
Yeah, and, well, yeah, there's blacksmiths there, but it's like the jail.
Dungeon, like...
Yeah, and you go down in there, and there's like people that are like chained up there with big long beards. They've been there forever. Like, it felt like one of those, like, you're like alive, but you're like in a hell sort of space. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the first song, so this is the second song. The first song is called Orgia, and the herd battles for its life like swans against a storm. They endure in believing that they have a choice. Ha 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 ha. He is well protected behind the walls of concrete. Do you really suppose that he who has the power, your Lord, grants you choice? So, everything sucks down here, and God's up there in his little concrete, wall and all that. But he's not giving you any choice. Mm-hmm. You have no free will. His realm thrives on war, and its citizens serve it obsequiously. Why reject his realm when our slavery is hidden with dreams and wakefulness? So, people are... I think one guy is saying, let's get out from under this tyrannical control. And the narrator is saying, well, why would we do that? Our slavery is hidden with dreams of wakefulness. Like, you think... What's the difference between thinking you're free and actually being free? It's like the
oh my gosh.
The Matrix, right?
I've changed so much. Because I always was like, no, I'd rather know and live in a hellish environment than know. And I don't think I'm like that anymore. I'm like...
Right.
I feel like the bald guy that was like... I just wanted to go back and eat steak. Remember that bald guy? He he wants to get reconnected to the Matrix.
Oh,
and he tells him, that, I feel like that guy.
It really brings up a question, like, what is the experiential difference between a person who is deceived into believing that they're free versus a person who's actually free? Like, those feelings are the same feelings. They feel exactly the same. So, why resist it? That's a pretty good argument for staying in the Matrix. Right? Like, okay, so I can go and be a rock star in the Matrix and have as much stake as I want. Why wouldn't he take that? Plus, the outside world in the Matrix was a disaster.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's song 1, which goes into song 2. Maybe it's a concept record. I'm not sure. He says, "Gritty, lifeless soil." Is this no?
That's 3.
No, that's 3. Here it is. Right.
The endoskeleton of all life is crippled.
Yeah. Good times, right? I think that's the second. That's the second song, though, isn't it? There it is, right here.
Baby, can you just?
No, because I was looking at the top lyric. His realm thrives on chaos, and his citizens exult at rejoicing. Why doubt his works when every strike of the whip is a tender breeze on the cheek? So, and then this song is called "With Whips Aloft." Mm-hmm. So here, it's. The whip is basically a gentle breeze. Like, why would
when you're in that delusion?
Right. Well, you're in a delusion that you're free or whatever because you live under the God delusion, right? Mm-hmm. And so what he's saying is God is really a bad guy. But then the other person's saying, well, yeah, but so why would we care if his whip that keeps us in slavery is a gentle breeze on the cheek?
Yeah.
Like, experientially, we're fine. So I think there's a back and forth there. And so every strike of the whip is the second to last line in the song. Then it leads into song 2, which speaks of "with whips aloft." So it's obviously bleeding into it.
Yeah.
So the endoskeleton of all life is crippled from the quintessences of life fall one another. The monster seizes them all and efficiently sucks to itself everything that once prospered. There it stands proudly on weak ground and eats the soil from beneath itself. She tries her hardest to fight back, but the reigning God with whips aloft does not give in. Mm-hmm. He seizes the air, which gets scarcer by the minute, but even though the space shrinks and shrinks, prevails he still with whips aloft. Oof. So, this is God, who you have somebody fighting to emancipate themselves from slavery to him.
Yeah. But
he refuses to let them go because he has his whips aloft, like he's But again, up here, the whip is a gentle breeze. It's basically, the whip is whatever God uses to force people to, serve him or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like to. What were you thinking?
It was just creepy, and when you're explaining it, it doesn't sound as creepy as it felt.
Well, it's pretty creepy to me that if God was a bad guy and he was using a summer breeze, a cool summer breeze to keep you in line. That's kind of a scary thought.
But it was actually a bad thing, but you're perceiving it as a good thing.
Right. That's kind of spooky.
He seizes the air, which gets scarcer by the minute.
Right. Prevails he still with whips aloft. And in the earlier song, God seizes the air in order to whip you with the cool breeze, right? Mm-hmm. And so here you go again. So it seems that it's like, see, this is not, in my opinion, like the typical black metal like anti-God song per se. I think if the true God was like this, then we should fight like hell to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that people miss out on, like, I always say to myself, like, put yourself in the other person's shoes. How would you, perceive what you believe or whatever? But I'm like, well, Christians believe that God himself became one of us and was subjected to, serving us and healing us and all the rest of it, and he dealt with all the exigencies that we have. So up here where he says God's basically in some concrete ivory tower untouched by the wars that he causes, it doesn't take into account that Christians believe that, and again, he might not be criticizing Christianity, could be criticizing Judaism, could be criticizing Islam, how do you know? But like the willingness for God to become one of us in Christian theology, I think is is a pretty interesting response to this particular situation.
Yeah.
And then he takes on one of the most brutal manners of exiting the world via crucifixion, where he's being beyond human recognition. So it's one of those things, man, where you're like, I get it as far as that would be what the perception would be, but that's not who God is. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think a lot of us have presented God that way. Like this like overbearing, you know.
Yeah.
And Jesus says, my burden is light.
Yeah.
You know, he says, take my yoke upon you, my burden is light, and I'm meek and lowly in heart. So that's not the same thing as you're a slave and you're going to do everything that I say. Mm-hmm. Like,
I thought this part was pretty crazy too. The monster seizes them all and efficiently sucks to itself everything that once prospered.
Yeah.
And like, it's the complete opposite of actually what God does. Like, things prosper because of him.
Right.
The kids will ask me these questions. The other day they were like, if you could kill God or kill everyone in the entire world, which would you pick? And I said, I'm going to have to let everybody in the whole world go. And then they were like, okay, what if you could spend 2 minutes with God and then you would never see him again? Or you could keep all of us and the whole world. I said, I'm going to go with you kids in the whole world because 2 minutes of God is not enough for me.
Yeah. Like, plus, if you killed everybody in the world but God still existed, he could rise him from the dead.
Yes. I told them, I said, if you kill God, everything is held together by him. So if you kill him, I lose you guys anyway.
Right. The physical world and the metaphysical world, right? Yeah.
Sayla was like, Dorian was like, it's true.
True.
I'm like, stop with these questions now.
Those are horrific questions.
I know.
Yeah, so it's, and you know, I've never experienced God this way. You know, just this exacting, reigning God who, rah. You know, like I've never experienced that, but you have, kind of, right? I mean,
I've experienced both because there was this, because we believe in a Trinity.
Right.
Like, God the Father to me was always this kind of exacting one that just expected so much out of people, and people couldn't live up to it. So then Jesus comes and like he's the good guy that like saves us and helps us, and he gives you the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit comforts you and teaches you. And so Jesus was really like the good. It was really like, I think that part of it was my parents' parenting style, which was good cop, bad cop. And so I think that I thought there had to be, like, my father, in my opinion, was the bad cop, and he was the one that was putting down the punishments, and he was the one that expected so much out of us. And my mom was kind of like, she'd let stuff slide, she'd forget stuff, she would not check our rooms when she was, my dad wanted her to check our rooms to make sure we were keeping up on it, and she wouldn't. And so then my dad would come home and he'd go after us. So I think that I had that sort of view with the Trinity. So the Father was like my father, and my mom was kind of like the mix of Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and you know what I mean? So I don't know, it was just kind of one of those situations. So yes and no at the same time, because I believe in the Trinity. So yes, he was exacting, but no, he wasn't, because there was always Jesus and the Spirit to me. Especially the Spirit was so important to me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no.
And I kind of feel like this is like a couple metaphors in one, maybe, because he said something about Iceland specifically in one of his songs.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he basically said that Iceland is a castrated dump.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
Why can you say that about your own place?
Well, I think like the metaphor here, when he talks about seizes them all and sucking to itself everything that once prospered, I think that the landscape would probably give you a lot of material to work with if you're like watching the transition to winter, where everything that was tree-like and the fruits and all that gets, basically nature comes in and takes it all away. Which then leads to the next question: is he talking God as we see God, or is he talking about God as nature or the universe? Right? Because if he's talking about that as the divine being, then of course, right? that makes a lot of sense. So, not that we believe it, but it makes sense that if that's where he was going.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved it reminded me of Magua a little bit, but that middle part where they did like the extended instrumental, like I love that. Because there's times when I'm like playing something, I'm like, yo, I would love to play this for like 20 measures straight. It's so fun and it feels so good. Very satisfying, but it's like, I always think to myself, well, I mean, I don't want to get too repetitive, you know, like I always imagine, like, what would I say about the song that I'm writing, you know what I mean? But maybe one day I'll just get brave enough to do one of those extended sections that they did. But I loved that extended. I mean, I'm gonna be listening to this for sure.
That's going on tonight when I fall asleep.
I'm just a sucker for the tremolo picking, man. That's
you always have been.
Yeah, I love it. I mean that, you know, Got to Life is how I came into metal, which is probably why, because it's the main riff is tremolo. So that's why I just love the way it sounds, and I love playing it. It feels so good and satisfying playing that stuff. So sonically this was crazy. Lyrically it was good as well, but sonically I loved what they did. Definitely, like, I mean, I don't know if they're influenced by Magua or if Magua's influenced by them, or maybe this is just next generation black metal. I don't know, but I love it. I wish these guys would go on tour with Magua. And that drummer, holy moly, that drummer was crazy.
Yeah.
I looked. I said, Sarkash, you gotta play like this. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. So that should be interesting. So yeah, I freaking love this song. Really, really, really good. What do you give this song?
9.2.
This is a 9.8 for me.
I knew it. I knew you were gonna give it.
Very, very good. I'm gonna listen to it right after this.
I believe.
Very, very good choice. Very good choice. Very good.
True cult.
True cult. Yeah, it took a while, but we got it to you. Been out.
Sorry, out.
Gone.